So thank you everyone for joining the webinar on career progression, where we're going to be talking to industry leaders to understand from their perspective what can be the best approach for implementing career progression in a retail organization. The reason I think we have the goal of this webinar is very simple. It is for us to help the audience and also sometimes ourselves understand what is the importance of having a career progression in an organization. And more importantly, what are some of the insights that we can get from leaders who have already implemented career progressions in their respective organizations? How can we learn from them? And what can we implement in our organizations? And what are some challenges that we can embrace or look out for when we do implement these career progressions in our workforce? So to begin with, I just like to quickly maybe define what a career progression is so that you can all understand what the perspective is that we are using for this particular webinar. So we're looking at CP or career progression as an advancement through improving existing skill or acquiring new skills. So any intervention in an organization that aims to help the individuals grow in the organization, either by improving their existing skill set or acquiring new skills for maybe a new position or new responsibilities, is what we are categorizing as career progression. It can be called many things for many organizations. It can be called a role growth. It can be called a skill progression. It can be a certification. But irrespective of what it is called, we are looking at an action or a program which kind of helps the individual move through the ranks of a particular organization. So we'll begin with understanding from our panelists. What do they think is the importance of career progression? Why should an organization invest the time and the effort to lay out a plan for their employees? And what are some benefits that the organization could potentially reach if they implement a good career progression plan that can be effective? So to start us off with the discussion, I'm going to invite Ms. Nandini to share her thoughts on this.
Good evening, everyone. So I think, people are at the heart of any organization, and it becomes very important for organizations to provide a platform where employees can learn and grow, because a business is nothing without the right people working for the organization. So I think it becomes very important to have a talent strategy uh, for any organization. So while we talk about business, we talk about numbers, I think it also becomes very critical for an organization to define a talent strategy. And one of the main things in talent strategy is career progression. And what I mean by that is when an employee joins an organization, his or her idea is to grow with the organization. And if we do not provide them with a platform where they can grow, learn and grow, definitely we're going to lose some very good employees. And hence, career progression becomes very, very important in an organization. So this is very much in a nutshell. I can go on and on about it, but of course, I'll give my co-panelists the chance to also share their thoughts. And as we progress, I'll add on more to this.
Sure, ma'am. I just wanted to extend that thought, ma'am. When you talked about a talent career progression being an important part of talent strategy, are we also looking at how it can maybe improve the retention of employees, especially in the ground workforce that we're looking at, where we're targeting the frontline workforce?
Okay, so let me just add on. So typically when we are talking about frontline, I think most retail organizations will agree with me that the biggest challenge that we face is number one, attrition. Number two, keeping the employees engaged, and thereby, productivity. So I think these three are very correlated. And the reasons for and we all know that attrition in the frontline is the highest across an organization, especially in the front end staff, the sales staff. So typically, if I talk about an attrition of 70% in the front end, almost 90% of the 70% is going to be my sales staff. And we can imagine the churn, because of the churn, what is going to be the impact on the customer service and thereby on the overall business and productivity, right? So if we do not uh, plan to show them a long-term career with us, we are going to lose people a lot. So one of the things that we had worked on in one of my earlier companies, we do it here as well, is where so in fact front end is the only place where we have multi-level hierarchies, right? So we have a sales staff, then we have a senior sales staff, we have department managers, we have assistant store managers, area managers. So they have a huge opportunity to grow within the store and the company. And if we lay a very, very clear career path for them, if we explain to them that if they stay and learn with us and grow with us, this is how they can grow with us, we can retain people and our productivity will definitely go up and they will stay engaged with us because we are continuously working on developing them. And every level that they move, obviously, they're going to get some financial gains as well. Because we realize that the key reason for an employee leaving at the front end is, even if they get, let's say, 200, 500 rupees more in another organization, they just leave because they look at everything very short term. So I think career progression plays a very critical role there, and communication of that career path becomes very important. And that's going to definitely help us reduce. So we were able to, reduce our attrition from almost 79% to 35% through our career progression platform.
Very interesting, ma'am. Thank you for sharing. I think we understand now that because people is at the heart of an organization, empowering them to grow with a career progression can definitely help motivate them to stay longer and be an essential part of the talent strategy that an organization can have. Thank you, ma'am. Maybe Anjana, if you can give us a view from an L&D perspective or a learning and development perspective, how do you think a career progression can help build a future-ready workforce?
Absolutely. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, my co-panelists. Yes, so I'll probably take it from where Nandini ma'am left it, or probably I'll take points from her point as well. As Nandini ma'am said, talent strategy. So the whole point of keeping our workforce engaged is one thing, and the second thing is that we are giving them a very clear picture of what future will look like. There's no uncertainty there. So when we give them this career path, when we tell them that in another 6 months' time, we expect that you will reach here. So that 6 months' time, we are also telling them that you will be learning new things. So it is not just a promise or a path. We are also ensuring through career progression that we are giving each month or each cycle, we are giving them something new to learn. Like ma'am said, these days the frontliners, the front staff, they would leave very easily for a short-term goal, for a slight increase in salary. However, if we give them a defined career progression as well as a learning, the Gen Z or the young people today need to be engaged. That's one of the main things for them. Rather than money, they also want the environment where they can learn and flourish. So, career progression gives them an assurance by the organization that you will be reaching a specific stage after a certain point. And also, in this path, you will be learning new things, which will empower you to do more stuff in a better manner. So that is a place where career progression plays a very important role. So I would say before we had career progression, we used to have trainings. From the L&D perspective, we used to have a lot of trainings, but those used to be led by a trainer. We still have that. However, the coverage of those trainings we could not ensure. But through career progression, which is also through the app, we are ensuring that each and every employee is enrolled in a career progression, in a career path. So every employee is engaged through learnings. So that just gives them a goal for their own self. They are able to see, okay, if I am right here right now as a beginner, as an L1 staff, in another 6 months or 8 months, I will learn new things and become a promoted staff. So that is a huge motivational factor for the employees.
Very nice. I think I like the part where you drew a parallel where you said between what L&D currently does, which is training, but how career progression can be a layer on top of that to be able to say this is the goal that you have, which is transparent. If you achieve that goal, there is definitely a growth in skill set, and we keep everyone engaged because you mentioned that all your employees have one CP or another that they're a part of, so they're actively engaged apart from the other training and learning programs that they do. Yeah, thank you so
Absolutely.
much, Anjana. Anis, how about you? Why would you think career progression is important in an organization? Anis, you have to unmute. We can't hear you. Yes.
Hello everyone. I just wanted to add some points. Frontline employees are excited to have a franchise career progression as it works as motivation for them. They take additional for the efforts to clear progression and above forward to their journey.
Right. So you're talking about it being very motivating for them, right? So that if they
Yes.
do a career progression, it's motivating for them to join. Yes, that's, I think, a very valid point. I think you yourself also have grown through the career progression, right? I think you did career progressions and have now grown into a manager role. So was it beneficial to you as an individual?
Yes. So I have joined the Belgian Waffle post my graduation. So the when I joined, I started my journey with the Belgian Waffle. The brand helped me grow not only as an employee but also as a person. It instilled me in patience, teamwork, passion. More importantly, taught me the value of business. For being a team member, store manager, senior L&D executive, the journey has been fruitful as well as challenges many ways.
Okay. So I think Anis is one of our of the panelists where we've had a clear career progression pathway that he has used to kind of grow in the ranks. So thank you so much, Anis, for that. So that hopefully audience has given you a quick understanding of why our panelists believe that career progression can play a key role in an organization. Some of the points that we brought out was it's very important. It's a part of the talent strategy that you might have in the organization to retain your workforce, to maybe motivate and encourage them, and also groom the people that you need for various roles that might open up in the current organizational structure or in the future, and also look at giving them clear goals to keep them engaged throughout their tenure in the organization. So to be able to understand, now moving forward, to be able to understand what are some of the strengths or the some key aspects that we can take away from designing a career progression, as well as some challenges that we want to look out for, we've thought of something quite interesting. So what we're going to do is all our panelists have chosen one Shark Tank company, and the reason we've chosen Shark Tank is obviously it's the trending TV show at the moment. Season 4 from I think it lives it's runs on Sony Live. So we're at season 4, and the idea with using the Shark Tank companies is we want to share that creating a career progression is company agnostic, right? Because it is a skill that we want to implement, and the context might vary depending on the organization we work with, the data points that we want to improve, the skills that we may want to either inculcate or improve in our team members. But it is definitely a skill that we can take depending on the organization and then replicate it in various ways. So, which is why our panelists have chosen one Shark Tank company each. They will give a brief introduction of the company that they've chosen. And based on that, they will share if they were to design a CP for that organization, what would it look like? What are some benefits of doing this, and what are some challenges that might come across for the organization that we can help mitigate at an early stage. I'm also going to read the disclaimer where we're saying that this webinar is an independent discussion where we're exploring hypothetical career progression frameworks for startups that have appeared on Shark Tank. It is based on publicly available information, and there are certain assumptions that we're making about these companies for the context of creating CP paths. This discussion is purely conceptual and it does not represent any official insights or endorsements from the companies that are mentioned. So with that disclaimer, I'm going to hand it over to Nandini ma'am, who's going to start us off with the organization that she's picked called Snitch. Over to you, ma'am.
Yeah. So I think it's a very interesting organization. And the story behind the young man who's actually built this brand is also amazing. We'll not really get into details of the brand per se, but the way I look at it, I think it's about 6-7 years old in business. They are into fashion apparel for men, and the whole vision of the young man who built Snitch is how can, like, women have various fashionable garments to wear and men do not. So he wanted to build a brand which provides fashionable, trendy products for men as well. And that's how this brand came into existence. Now, let me start off with any brand that, that launches itself. I think whenever a new brand launches, the focus of the brand is business, right? And it's about getting people, hire people. I have a thought, I have an idea, and I want to convert it into a business model. And if I'm converting it into a business model, the first thing I will do is I will look at what are my investments. First of all, what is my vision? What do I want to be in 5 years or 10 years? Second is, how much of investment will I require? Right? And third will be when will I break even? And when will I start making profits? And if I am supposed to do all that, who are the people I will require as an org structure? And the work starts. And I'm sure this young man did the same. And initially, nobody thinks about a career progress for the team that is put together. However, I feel any organization that also puts that talent strategy that I spoke about as part of the whole business strategy, it will help them to keep the good people from day one with them and build them and grow them within the organization, right? So hypothetically, let's assume that Snitch has done that. And in the last 6 to 7 years, he's been, the founder has been able to pick those 4 or 5 people who have really grown through the ranks and been able to move, let's say, from maybe an MIS or a data entry operator to, let's say, handling a category. Right? And that has happened because he has been able to put through programs that the individual could go through, clear, and was reviewed on performance also as a great performer. And hence, he has achieved this. For startups, one of the biggest challenge is to attract the right talent. Imagine sharing the story to youngsters outside to attract talent. It's a beautiful story, right? So the way I would look at it is, how do you use career progression from the very beginning so that you're able to attract better talent, and that would be more for startups. Yeah. So I think, Suzanne, I don't know if I'm going the right way, but this is my perspective about how Snitch could use career progression to be able to build talent within and to attract talent from outside. Yeah.
Okay. So how would you recommend that Snitch as an organization can balance their business goals along with the employee aspirations that they might have, where you mentioned they growing within the ranks, because their business goal is going to be pure sales. They want to maybe do 2 times or 5 times or 10 times the revenue that they've done the past years. So how do they balance that business goal with the career progression plan that they hope to build for various levels?
So like I mentioned, as part of my business goals, I know where I'm going over the next 5 years or 10 years, depending on, what my business plan has been. And if that's what I've put together, I also need to put together what is the kind of team I will require over the next 5 years. Right. And once I put that, I know. So today I may say, okay, I'm doing only menswear. Tomorrow, I may say, I also want to do women's wear. So I'll have to create an entire new category, an entire new team for it. So why wouldn't I move some of the buyers in the men's category to lead my women's wear category, right? And that I can do only if I have a clear career progression mapped, saying that, okay, do well here. Your next step is to move into women's wear, and this is how you can move. We have modules for you to learn and grow in the women's category. Plus, we have modules for you to take up a leadership role, right? So there is a behavioral path for you. There is a functional and domain path for you. Just clear all of this. You have mentors mapped to you. But yes, this takes effort. I think most organizations fail on the people front, because one, there is no leadership involvement. Number two, it becomes an HR agenda, not the agenda of every department or every function. Number three, it requires a lot of thought and effort.
Yeah.
And leaders are so busy driving the business that they do not want to focus on this part because they feel this is an easier thing to do by just hiring people from outside, right? Or picking people based on some, intuition, random, let's say, performance-based evaluations. Performance-based evaluations, by the way, are never 100% objective. So it's a lot of effort when you're putting a career progression together. And if leaders do not invest time on it, and when I say leaders, I don't mean just the top leaders across the various departments, functions. And if it remains an HR agenda, it's definitely going to fail.
I think what I'm taking away from this is I liked how you said it's an investment across all levels. It is not just the top leadership who need to understand that investing in this particular strategy can bring results. And I think the results that you talk about is just answering the question, who is my team? As you rightly said, because if you know your team, you can then branch out because you have the team to support you in either new business verticals that you're going to bring in or strengthen the existing verticals and go for like a wide scale growth that they're planning. So that's what I've taken away from.
Yeah, and probably just to add to that, what I mentioned about so on the one side, I have my business strategy.
Mhm.
And on the other side by side, I also need to build my people strategy. I need to have if I'm having my business strategy for 5 years, I need to have my org structure for 5 years also put down. Yes, this could be reviewed every year and changes could be made, but at least I know this is how my org structure is going to look like over 5 years. These are my current people and I can show them a career path if I have my org structure in place. If I don't have that, I don't know what I'm going to do with you. Right? So I think it becomes very important to have both simultaneously. I think that's very critical.
Okay. So let's say, ma'am, hypothetically, this founder of Snitch has to convince the sharks that have invested in them to say, I need to build a career progression or have an org strategy for my organization. And obviously, there's going to come some resistance because there's obviously never going to be a direct correlation between if we do people strategy, there's going to be a direct inflow into, let's say, increased sales or something like that. So he might face a little bit of resistance from the investors. So what would you think are good ways to help the founder kind of mitigate this and say, this is how you would deal with the challenge if you face resistance from the founders or the investors or even the internal leadership?
It's a very tricky question.
Okay.
The way I'm going to answer this is like I told you earlier, that whenever a business is put in place, everybody's focusing on the numbers. So if the founder of Snitch is going to go to the Shark Tank panelists saying that I want to invest on my people, I don't think they're going to invest in him.
Okay.
The way I would look at it is, it should be built into his business strategy,
Okay.
right? So if he's talking about wanting to build a business of X, let's say 3X over the next 3 years, I want to build it to 3X, then he should have already factored in what is his org structure going to look like, and how is he going to build his existing team into that org structure in terms of their growth. It should have been factored in by him, and I don't think if he has already done that, I don't think there's any need for him to present it to the panelists, because panelists are more interested in knowing what is in it for them also, right? If they're investing in something. So I don't think, I'm being very candid with you here. I don't think they would be interested. But as a business owner, it is my accountability to ensure I have already put that in place. And many organizations realize this many, many years later, that they should have probably, invested in a career progression much earlier in their business, rather than later. In fact, many organizations don't even invest in an HR team in the initial stages. So that's very sad.
Thank you, ma'am. So I think for our audience, some key takeaways that Nandini ma'am has shared with us from her perspective in in a high leadership position is building the plan for your people into the strategy that you have in mind, or the new program that you want to launch is maybe an ideal way to push for career progression within the organization without getting much pushback from the leadership, because we can make a statement to say, if we want to reach this business goal, the people strategy is part and parcel. It cannot be taken as something separate. So building it into business strategy where you've already factored in people and talent management is one way to look at it. And the second that ma'am spoke about is who is my team? That question, I think, is going to stay with me for a while, because as much as it is a statement, a question, it is much more of a statement for us to say, can we answer the question, who is in my team or who is my team? Because when we have plans for expansion, or we have plans for new product launches, do we know that we have the team to back us up during that process? And the third thing that ma'am spoke about is, like, just like how we have a strategy for business, we should have a strategy for people management as well. And both can obviously change due to circumstances and under review. But the fact that it needs to exist side by side is very important. So thank you, ma'am. Those are the three things, highlights that we have taken away from your analysis of Snitch. Thank you so much. Anjana, over to you. She's chosen quite a popular snack called Beyond Snack that came on Shark Tank. They're the banana chips organization where I think the sentence I remember the founder saying is just like somebody reaches for a potato chips, I always want a banana chip packet right next to it. So Anjana, over to you for us to understand how you would, from your perspective, how would you build, and also what are some strategies and challenges that this organization might face while implementing a CP in their organization?
Sure. As you mentioned, Susanna, Beyond Snack, the reason why I chose this organization is it definitely is into retail and is into food business, which is something I am an expert of. So, like Nandini ma'am said, maintaining this people strategy. So, one of the main things that Beyond Snack would have to worry about is competition, because a banana chips is not something that only Beyond Snack is going to offer, right? If you go to Kerala, every other corner will have a shop. So, why would a customer, or why would I as a customer choose Beyond Snack? So Beyond Snack, or the founder, he will have to ensure that the quality of the product that he's selling is top notch, and the service that he provides. Because these days, even if you falter somewhere on the food front, I wouldn't say everyone will forgive it, but to an extent, it can be recovered through good service. So if you go to a restaurant and if someone serves you an incorrect dish, you might be upset. But if the server or the restaurant manager comes and explains the whole scenario, apologizes to you, and quickly makes a recovery, you would forgive them and you would give them another chance. You would probably dine there again. Correct? So similarly, he will have to ensure that their service as well as product are above everyone else's, right? And that kind of quality can be maintained only through training. Without a proper training, that level of finesse cannot be achieved. Correct. So through this career progression, why for Beyond Snack career progression will be very important is it's a new company. So and employees are very smart these days.
Yeah.
So why would I want to join Beyond Snack, which is selling something that others are also selling? What is in it for me as an employee? So here, the founder or the Madhu would have to ensure that his employees know how to do good service, and his employees also know that at the end of this service or at the end of this journey, I'm going to reach the next stage. So that is where the importance of career progression comes in for any organization, right? So I am telling my staff that it is uh, not just an HR strategy. It is not only it's that's how it's perceived. Like ma'am rightly said that ये HR का काम है, training लेना HR का काम है. This is all on HR and training. But through career progression, the way I want to implement it for Beyond Snack is through a observation checklist model. Okay. So through this, I'm ensuring that my level one staff, if I call it level one, level two, level three, then my level one staff does a particular training in this month, which is assigned to him, and his supervisor, who's also a frontliner, is the one who has to certify this person. So I'm not just taking the onus on me, I'm also ensuring that you, as a supervisor, are equally responsible for training this staff. You are equally responsible for taking this staff forward. You
Right.
also will move forward and you're taking your staff also forward.
Mhm.
Okay? So I'm giving them a very clear goal, or I would say the founder is giving them a clear goal that through this training, through this career progression, you are going to ensure that my company reaches a particular stage, a particular say top market,
Yeah.
where we will be able to surpass all the others.
Mm.
Because as I in the initial this thing said that Kerala chips is very easily available.
Yeah.
So my quality is equally proportionate to my training.
Yeah.
And that is where I would very strongly highlight the importance of career progression.
Mm.
Okay. The challenge that is going to come here is people resist training like anything. I can't tell you enough how people avoid coming to training, especially the operation staff, the frontline staff, because for them, what gives them money is the work they put in, and training is something additional. Okay, so that is going to be one of the main challenges.
Mm.
But how CP plays a role here is if you have it on your laptop or if you have it on your phone, you can take that training anytime, anywhere. So that is the benefit that career progression provides them.
Mm.
Okay, so I do have a challenge, but I also have an answer to that challenge. Another challenge is going by my assumptions, Beyond Stack is spread across everywhere in India. Okay, and frontline staff everywhere would not be speaking the same language. So, language barrier is another main challenge that is faced. However, through CP, we also have an option of making the career progression or the trainings in career progression multilingual, right? So again, this is language barrier is a very strong barrier that we all face in real life also, and in terms of our organizations also. Language barrier is a big challenge that we face. However, the CP that is being offered is giving us a very good solution there. And there are multiple languages, it's not just English and Hindi, but there are other languages also that can be used. So there, my challenge again is taken care of.
Right.
Okay, those are the main challenges that Beyond Snack may face
Mhm.
for implementing the CP, the resistance from staff, and but we are also giving them a solution that you don't have to spend your time during work and come take part in the training, but you can take it at your own convenience. You can attend the training or you can complete the training at your own convenience, and you would be certified by your own supervisor.
Right.
right? So when someone else comes in to conduct a training, people generally have a thought that I am the one doing the work. Why is he or she coming and telling me what to do and how to do it? Then I don't see this person doing this.
Right.
Whereas when your immediate supervisor or your manager gives you a training, you relate to them. So that's a very good angle that can be brought into CP. Okay, and the other challenge that I spoke about was the language barrier. Again, career progression is helping us out by providing multilingual options. Okay, so those are mainly the challenges that I perceive would be faced by Beyond Snack.
Right. So one of my questions that I have is how would you ensure that beyond snack, because they're just starting out and they always definitely want to expand, and as your assumption they have quite a few stores and employees, what are some practices that they can do to create a culture where it's always a culture of continuous learning, or the fact that there is a career growth opportunity available? So what are some best practices that you've implemented that maybe Beyond Snack can also have a go at?
Okay, Susanna, training or this culture of training comes from the top. So the importance of this has to be driven and has to be exemplified throughout the ranks.
Hmm.
So it is not that only the frontliners or the L1 staff, the level 1 staff would be called in for training. So this has to be a culture that has to be run from the top till the bottom. So, and also the time that they invest into training has to be quantified somewhere. It has to be marked somewhere. There are a lot of practices, especially in the hospitality industry, that we've seen that the employees have to put in their number of hours, say 9 hours has to be put into work, and also additional 2 to 3 hours they'll have to put in for training. So that is something again that is driven from the top. So that culture should not be there. The culture should be that people value training.
Mhm.
The people should not say enough number of times how much ever is not enough, that training is what takes you forward. Training what empowers you to make sure that you do well in your next step, or training is what empowers you to do your role, your job well, and to take your business forward. So
Mhm.
as a good founder or as a good business owner, he should be well aware that if he has to make sure that Beyond Snack is creme a la creme, the premium of Kerala chips, then he has to ensure that his people know how to do what they need to do, right? So this culture has to come in from the top, and the number of hours employees put in, this has to be quantified. That is one of the best practices a company can have, any organization for that matter can have, that they give that importance that is required to training. Okay. And the other thing, as I was saying before, one of the best practices that we've employed is to put the onus also on the supervisors and managers. So as a training person, as an L&D person, I am ensuring that my training is assigned to this person, but it is my responsibility as well as his supervisors and managers responsibility that this employee is trained and knows this particular topic, or he knows how to, if the topic is say guest service, then this employee knows how to make sure the guest is served properly. So by putting the onus on other team members also, everyone feels equally responsible for taking this employee forward. So
Right.
that gives the employee also the empowerment, and also the supervisor and manager the empowerment that I am the one who's trained this person. I'm the one who's trained this team and taken them forward. So that's one of the best things that we've done, and it's really worked for us.
Right, very nice. And just a final understanding on, sometimes when you roll out the CPs, right, in the organization like Beyond Snack, you might come across certain constraints in terms of time or budget, or even like the same question I posed to Nandini ma'am, you might have resistance to change, right, when you put this for your frontliners. Apart from some of the things that you've told us, is there anything that you've done at your organization where Beyond Snack can adopt, in terms of if you come across a challenge where you might have resources is a problem, time is a problem, budget is a problem, what are some things that they can do practically to kind of still run CP along with the challenges that they face?
Okay. So again, taking away from Nandini ma'am's thing, that if he is a good business owner, if he is a smart business owner, he would have budgeted for his people's growth,
Right.
right? So, budget is something to employ or to deploy career progression. I think it would, rather than an expense, it would be an investment. I would call it an investment that I am investing my time and money in growing my people. So, like Richard Branson rightly said, that if you take care of your employees, they'll take care of your customers. So, if I want to ensure that I want to have a strong, solid customer base, then I'll have to ensure that I have a strong, solid employee base. So for that, I will have to invest in a good training plan. And I don't think there's anything better than career progression right now, which is available. Because here, another thing, like you asked, what is it that I can do or Beyond Snack can do to face this resistance from employees? Another point would be to ensure that employees are clearly communicated, in the sense you will have to show them, Beyond Snack will have to show them that your career journey has to go through this, your learning has to be this, there has to be clear transparency and communication. So you are telling the employee that through the hours you put in, you are also learning and you're also growing. There's no vague plan for you that okay, you will be trained, you will be promoted. So we have a timeline, we have a clear timeline as to when an employee will be promoted and how is also available with them, how is through the training, and when also is something that we have at the end of the career progression. So we are giving that clarity to the employees, and I don't think employees, at least that's how it worked for us, that we ensured that all our employees were clearly communicated when we newly launched career progression, and how it is going to work and what is in it for them. We had a very clear session with all of our employees. Our employee base is really huge, so we made sure that through the regional teams we communicated this to everyone. So the employee himself or herself understands that, okay, when I go through this career progression, it is my benefit, not for the organization's benefit. So they take it in them that, okay, if I have to grow, I have to go through this. So that resistance can be taken care through a clear, transparent communication is what we believe. Okay.
You, Anjana. So I think from Anjana's perspective on this, as the audience, what we can take away, the first one is she's recommending building a model of codependency or co-accountability, where because the manager, the supervisor, and the frontline team members' growth are interconnected, it brings the onus and the responsibility on them to make sure that the career progression is implemented on the ground very well, because it becomes an ecosystem where everybody benefits, or if one person kind of breaks the chain, then it's a problem for that entire store or for that entire sector of people. So codependence or co-accountability is a strategy that can be used to ensure that CP is successful on the ground. The second one, which was also something that was addressed on the Shark Tank episode of Beyond Snack, was what was the difference between the Kerala chips that this individual offered versus what you found in Kerala in the transparent sheets, right? So the answer was consistency. And that's what Anjana also has told us, that the goal of career progression can also be to maintain consistency in product, in quality, and in service, so that we know any packet of Beyond Snacks that we open, or any customer service or retail store that we visit, we will have that consistent experience, and the brand can be sure that there is consistent experience across. And the third one is, if there are constraints in terms of budget, time, resources, Anjana does suggest that clear and transparent communication is very important, because if the team members know that this is the end goal and these are the constraints within which we are working, they're made aware, and they also know that that's what's going to happen moving forward. So 3 things to take away from Anjana: codependency or co-accountability, ensure consistency, and clear and transparent communication. Thank you so much, Anjana, for your perspective. Okay, next up, Anis, we have his organization that he picked, and that is Go Zero, guilt-free ice creams. And I think there's a lot of learnings from here as well. So Anis, over to you for your perspective.
Yeah. So I have chosen Go Zero ice cream, guilt-free ice cream. So because this is the new brand which Kiran Shah has bring it to this organization. So I just wanted to add two things in that. If I were a Go Zero employee, how could I take up the career progression program? So as a Go Zero employee, it's important to have a career progression since that instills faith the company and promise longevity. Having a detailed growth path helped me to stay 7 years long in company, accept challenges, got personal development. And if I were a store manager at Go Zero, what challenges I can face? So challenges like a lack of manpower, time constraints, or lack of guidance could be a major roadblock. Time is a major constraint since most frontline employees are expected to be focused on their primary task while the shift. Expecting the Gen Z completed modules from their personal time to a tedious task. I use myself as a role model here and insist a degree of sacrifice is required from frontline to finish the models and set themselves on the path of the self growth.
All right. So I think what Anis also has clearly mentioned to us is, I think in his terms, from his perspective, as being part of that career journey is faith in the company, which also I think is very important because he said maybe because the employees, because of the career progression, they have faith in the company that the company is going to do things beneficial for them. And so because of that, they will stay longer, maybe accept certain challenges as well as in their stride, and if there are if required, like he mentioned, a degree of sacrifice as well, that he's also put in when he was going in his career journey from an employee at his current organization to now a manager that handles quite a few responsibilities. So thank you, Anis, for that perspective. I think it was very helpful to know from a frontliner who's actually done and been a part of that process what it feels like and what are some things that we could learn from it. So any questions from the audience before I take closing remarks from our panelists? I have a few questions for my panelists as well. If there are some from you as the audience, please feel free to put them in the chat, and we will take them up. Just to get started, and this is open to the panel, how would you measure the success of career progression over time? How do we know that a career progression plan has been successful? What are some metrics? How to measure, how not to measure also is a perspective we can discuss. Any thoughts on this? I'm opening it up to the panel.
I can take that up.
Sure.
So, when we launched the career progression, one of the thought was, like I told you, attrition was very high. So one of the thought was, how do we ensure that so attrition was high. Second was, we wanted to improve the productivity and engage people more. So one of the idea was we realized that we were hiring too many people from outside at the, the senior CRE and above level. So one of the things we did there was we said 70% of people should be grown from within, only 30% should be hired from outside. And this is possible only through the career progression. Very clearly, people have to clear their levels through the career progression and move to the next level. And we were able to achieve that. So when this was in my earlier company, so we had about 72% of the people moving from within, and data is always available with us to show that yes, we've been able to achieve that. In my current organization, it's been a practice even before I moved in here that we don't hire store managers from outside. And when I joined here, one of the biggest challenges was it was a very, very subjective method of evaluating. So managers would recommend people and they would be put into so they had to come to the head office for 5 days and they were interviewed by all the senior people over here, and then they were given a test and they have to clear it, and they are on the bench if they clear it, right? So it was so number of things here. One is there was a lot of wastage of money because 5 days of travel, right, of all the people. Number two, because it was a physical activity, it took a lot of time. Number three, the individuals we work on a commission model. So the individuals would lose their commission because they're not on the floor selling products. So it was a huge challenge that was put across to us. And like I told you, very subjective because manager chooses. So we use the career progression platform to automate this entire piece. So what we did is we put a filtration process. So we said anyone who's been in the system for 2 years, which we later reduced to 1.5 years, anyone who's been a salesman for consecutively 2 months, and we had an age criteria. So we put that as a filtration. So if anyone clears that filtration, moves to the next level. The next level was all the trainings that were done when they were here for 5 days. We automated that. So it was all video modules in Hindi, in languages comfortable to them, English. So we created video modules. We put it on the career progression platform. Everybody had to clear that. So if somebody clears it, then they are ready for the next level, which is the interview round. And the interview was also done virtually on the platform. Once they have cleared, then we have them available as a bench for store managers. And I think we were able to show to the management the amount of time we have saved, the amount, even from a cost impact perspective, we were able to show what was the impact in terms of cost savings, and it created a more objective way of evaluation. So I think that's been a case study that I can talk about. Yeah.
Thank you. I think clear relation of if you measure certain data points, correlate them to business goals, then success of the CP is inevitable at that point.
Yes. And I think one more thing is, in that manual method, we used to get lesser number of, bench in a particular time, whereas here we were able to get much more.
Okay.
Even today, we follow that. So, yeah.
Nice. Anjana, any thoughts?
Yeah, so how we measure the success of career progression here is, again, guest satisfaction. So we have indexes for guest satisfaction. So we've seen a clear drop in customer complaints after we've deployed career progression. So training is something that cannot be quantified. So the only measure or the only quantifiable area we could find was through the guest index, the satisfaction index. So every month, what we do is in an outlet or in a particular store, how many of our employees are rolled into career progression. Like, for example, we have housekeeping staff who are currently not on a CP model, but we have our frontliners who are on the CP model. So we see the total number of people in the outlet and how many are enrolled into the career progression. And we also see a past dated the index, the score that was for them same time last year.
Right.
So
Oh, right.
so we've seen a clear rise in the number of people who are there enrolled in CP in a store, a clear rise in their guest satisfaction score as well. So that is one of the main key areas where we measure the impact of career progression at our organization.
I think similar thoughts to what Nandini ma'am said. There is a quantifiable business goal. Therefore, measure your success based on that. And another useful metric is if you've implemented a CP for a particular business goal for improvement, compare it for the last year or a comparable period to see if there's any change. So correlation is always something that we can use. And I think causation may not be something that is possible in the social sciences, especially with people. So we have a question from Mr. Vinay. So he's asking us if if the CP process should be conveyed during the induction process for a new employee at the very beginning, or is it something that we introduce while they move in the organization or where their tenure increases in the organization? Any thoughts on that?
Sure. I am not very keen on introducing a career progression during induction. But yes, as part of my induction, I can tell all the new joiners that this organization has a career progression, has a career path, and your respective team manager will be explaining in detail to you. I can probably inform the new joiners about career progression, But I would not suggest on enrolling them into career progression during the induction itself, because first the initiation has to happen in the department. You have to understand your role, and then getting enrolled in career progression will give you a clear path. That's what I would suggest. So
Sure,
do
Anjana.
not enroll an employee during induction. Tell them about it, inform them about it, give them a clear picture, and let them get into their respective roles, understand their role, and let their manager explain the career progression to them, and then enroll them.
Understood. Sure. Nandini ma'am, yeah.
So a slightly different thought. So for the very base level of the frontline, which is our sales staff, I think what Anjana said is bang on, because not a lot of people retreat in the first 3 months of them joining. So it really doesn't make sense to enroll them immediately. But for higher levels, let's say we have ADMs, DMs, store managers, and if we are doing this for the corporate as well, it makes sense to start from day one, where we are mapping their induction training also onto the platform. Number two, career progression does not need to be only a training tool, right? Because we are looking at the individual at an overall level. So we are not only looking at their development side, we're also looking at the performance side. So when a manager reviews the individual, he or she is reviewing the individual in terms of their development from a training perspective and in terms of their performance on the domain functional perspective, which is very critical for the manager, right? He's not going to be happy with someone who's not performing on the floor, but is completing all his or her trainings. So it has to be a balance of both. So if we are not mapping them from day one on the career progression, especially at a certain level and above, I understand for the frontline, I mean, for the base level in the front line, but for the others, it should be from day one, is my thought. Yeah.
Sure. Thank you, ma'am. I think Vinay, hopefully that's answered your question. Both of them have given their perspectives. Anjana more from the base, the entry level team members, and Nandini ma'am has spoken about the importance of if you need it for higher ups, maybe it's a good idea for them to know what is it they're going to be measured against from day one. As maybe a concluding question, do you think to improve a career progression within the organization, is getting feedback from the employees important? If it is important, what kind of feedback are we looking for? What should we take? What we should not? And if it's not important, what feedback or how can we improve the CP that we're rolling out to our team members? So this will be our closing question for the session. We can start with any one of you.
So I think anything that we introduce new may not always be 100% the way we expect it to be, or the way the end user expects it to be.
Right.
So number one, I think whenever we start something new, we should always do it with the buy-in of the stakeholders and the end users. So typically there is a must that we should do a UAT. We should get feedback initially itself. So almost 90% of the feedback that comes in the initial UAT is implemented before we roll out for a larger audience. So there, yes, definitely feedback is very important, so that once we roll out, it's not too much that we need to change. Because what happens is when you do it without a UAT, when you roll out without a UAT, or when you roll out without taking the initial, so there are 3 stages, I would put it that way. Stage 1 is work with your stakeholders to build the career progression. So a lot of feedback is already incorporated. Stage 2 is do a UAT. So the end user may have some feedback, right, in terms of how the platform is working, what does it look like overall, right? So I think it's very important to do a UAT and get inputs and feedback, which needs to be rolled back, corrected before we do a complete rollout, right? So you're sorted almost, I would say 90%. 10% will still be there because you've not done an entire cycle of the progression. So when you do one entire cycle of the progression, you will have some feedback that may come, which you also may realize after the entire cycle is done. So that 10% of feedback that comes, you may have answers to some as this is possible, not possible, and some which gets incorporated back again. But it need not be a complete relaunch. It's just one part of it which is getting corrected. So I think that's how I would put it.
Oh, thank you, ma'am. Yeah. Anjana, any thoughts?
I think I have the same opinion as ma'am does. So when there's something new that we had this problem in our organization was very, we had a similar, not, I wouldn't say similar, not a career progression, but we had a online platform before. And to change the entire structure into a career progression and to launch this newly, there was a lot of resistance from all the employees, a lot of resistance from the management also as to how effectively will this work. So that was the initial 3 months. However, once people started finishing each cycle of the career progression, people understood how important it is for them, how beneficial it was for them in their career journey. People had a different view. So yes, the initial feedbacks may not be uh, very accurate or may not be that effective. However, taking the feedback after each cycle gets in, we might be able to get something that can be changed, and we might get something that can be taken as a useful tool for improvement.
Sure. So I think all the panelists are in agreement that testing it out, get feedback initially, improve it, wait for a cycle is something that you would seek. So the answer to the question is, should we get feedback? Definitely get it initially so that the rollout will be successful at launch. So that brings us to the end of our webinar on gaining insights from industry experts on how to design career progressions, what are some of the strategies and challenges, and we hope for the audience you've gotten some tips. If you have missed out on anything, don't worry about it. We watch out on our social handles. You will find all of this information in easy to read carousels very soon. I'd also like to thank our panelists, Ms. Nandini, Ms. Anjana, Mr. Aneef. Thank you so much for being on board with us and for sharing your insights. I definitely learned a lot from all three of you. So thank you so much for your time and being with us this evening.
Thank you. Thank you, Vivena, for
Thank
the
you so
Thank
opportunity.
you
much.
very much.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening and a weekend. Bye-bye.
Bye.